Happy April 1st, everyone. Don't get fooled today. A year ago, I put out a video talking about the Panasonic HVX 200 that was supposed to be kind of a joke, like an April Fool's thing, but I think my level of sarcasm or irony or my genuine appreciation for this camera, although being like 20 years later, maybe missed the mark for a few people, or people thought I was being serious because, again, nowadays we have so many people picking up retro, vintage, old school tech and reapplying it for a modern audience. So probably missed the mark for a few people. You know, you make an April Fool's video and, you know, you roll the dice a little bit, but I wanted to spend some time today talking about it. I don't really know where this video is headed other than it's April 1st. This isn't a joke video. It's not some big gotcha. I'm not trying to make you look like a fool, but I did want to bring up this video and how interesting it is to see those perspectives. People who maybe were there at the time back almost 20 years ago, or maybe even, I don't even know if it's actually been 20 years or not. And maybe now it actually has been. I think when I made the video it was like 19 years or something like that. But the HVX 200 came out a long time ago now, but I did have it at the time, shot a bunch with it. It was kind of my first proper digital HD camera, I guess. It's certainly not shallow depth of field, although we did get the Red Rock Micro set to do that, adapting vintage, at that time, vintage Nikon lenses to the HVX 200 to get that Super 35 shallow depth of field aesthetic before DSLRs, before the DSLR revolution, before the Lumix GH1, before the Canon 5D Mark II. Shooting with the Panasonic HVX 200 was a lot of fun, made some great stuff at the time, I think, for what it was. You know, it's certainly now probably nothing I would like show off and say, hey, look how good this is. But it was good experience for me at the time. And so if you were around during that time, you probably got that the video was kind of tongue-in-cheek. But if you're maybe a newer content creator, someone new to video, new to photo, and you saw that, you might have thought I was being serious, saying like, hey, this is the greatest thing ever. Look how amazing it is. And I've definitely met those people in my career over time where people, they get attached to the gear they buy, especially if they're spending upwards of $1,000, tens of thousands of dollars. And they'll, you know, people will cling to it and think, no, this is the best. The new stuff, it's missing some of the flavor, some of the texture, some of the aesthetic. I met one guy over the years who loved the DVX 100 and thought that was the pinnacle of technology and loved how great that looked and didn't like HD. I thought, okay, everyone has their preference. Everyone has their opinion. For me, I've always tried to stay up to date on the latest and greatest, embracing technology, but also not, you know, just chasing after it either, because there is diminishing returns. A lot of times the newest stuff is better, but maybe not necessary in every scenario. We're seeing that now as we're shifting towards 6K and 8K, which do have their benefits and their values, but maybe aren't always necessary. Sometimes 4K is enough. However, there's other times where you might want 8K or even upwards of that, 16K maybe. I don't know. But if you're new around here or new on the internet or new to video, maybe the HVX 200, you think, oh, that looks cool. That's a great aesthetic. It's probably not worth the effort to get this camera working nowadays. It is kind of a pain with the P2 cards, with the FireWire. You can transfer over USB, which is one of the funny things about this video, kind of a behind the scenes thing. But back in the day with the HVX 200, I always used FireWire as my kind of dumping mechanism. So plugging the camera into the computer with FireWire. But unfortunately on my camera model, that FireWire port is bad. It doesn't work anymore. So I had to figure out how to get the USB 2.0, that USB port working as an offload device. Otherwise this video wouldn't even have happened. I shot all of it thinking like, oh yeah, I'll just dump it via FireWire. I know how to do that. I'll just pull out an old laptop that has FireWire and I'll make it happen. But unfortunately that didn't work. I had to go this different way, USB, which ended up being easy, I think, if I'm remembering back a year ago of how I actually did it. But yes, I was able to get the footage off the camera via USB and actually make it happen and get it done by April 1st, which I thought was clever. I thought, oh yeah, HVX 200, let's make this kind of cool promo for how great this camera is, but release it on April 1st, as that'll be a fun joke. And, you know, like half the people now like didn't get it. They're just seeing some video on YouTube going, oh, this guy likes this camera. Oh, cool, must be good. Certainly wouldn't recommend it today, but it is fun to look at from a historical perspective and kind of the mark that it left on the industry and how much it allowed people to shoot higher quality stuff for cheaper. That was the great thing about the HVX 200 is that it opened up HD production to so many people who couldn't afford it otherwise. I was certainly in that category. And the HVX 200 was by no means, cheap. It wasn't cheap, in fact. Even by today's standards, it wasn't cheap, but it was cheaper relative to everything else that was so expensive at the time. Obviously, that changed pretty quick thereafter with the DSLR revolution, the 5D Mark II, the GH1, so the Nikon D90 around that time, all offering HD video in a DSLR, made it even cheaper and more economical, being able to shoot to like an SD card. Way better than P2 cards. Yeah, maybe it's not as durable or reliable or robust or whatever they'll sell you on the P2 cards, but also a fraction of the price. And I think most of us are willing to work with that. Although the 5D Mark II wasn't SD cards, that would have been compact flash CF cards. So yeah, but I think the GH1 was SD cards, certainly. So yeah, I got a GH1 not super quick after the HVX 200, but once I kind of realized, you can get these bigger sensor cameras and shoot better quality video, it was a no-brainer. I scooped up a GH1 for like $600, I think. SD cards, easy. Yeah, there was a lot of workarounds. I had to hack the thing and boot up, strange firmware on it and MTS files. There wasn't a lot of fun on the technical side with some of those things, certainly coming from the HVX 200, but the visual gains, the quality in the output was just so much better. And the cameras are so much smaller. So that shift from broadcast, camcorder style production, having to build these huge, heavy rigs, switching to more DSLR style, I've never looked back. Yes, there was a time period where things like the Ursa Mini made a lot of sense because when you're working with clients, you do need to show up with something that looks like a professional camera. But I feel like we've even passed that phase of the industry where nowadays lots of people just want you to shoot on your phone, and you can bring a photography camera, a hybrid that shoots 8K video in some cases, and the client still might prefer you shoot on a phone just for that aesthetic. They want it to look like a cell phone. And there's some tricks you can do on DSLRs, on hybrids, to make them look more like what a smartphone would shoot. Basically stripping down all the best parts of them to make them look like a smartphone. But you can do it. But either way, there still might be times where the project just calls for a cell phone. And how funny that is, coming from the HVX 200 shooting HD video and that being a wow factor to now you can shoot 4K on your smartphone, a device everyone has probably in their pocket. You can just take it out and shoot 4K video like that. No problem. You can airdrop it. You can shoot to an SD card. You can do all sorts of cool stuff on your phone now. Granted, it's been 20 years. And so I wouldn't recommend going back, but that is kind of the emerging trend. There are the handful of creators and the influencers or whatever you want to call them that are shooting more retro, more vintage for that aesthetic. And maybe it has a place, but a lot of it can probably be achieved with filters or, there's probably better ways to do it than literally shooting on those devices if they still work, which, like I said, in my case, the HVX 200, someone else pointed it out in the video, the top handle completely broke off at some point in time, years and years ago now, but the top handle is no longer there and it's just gaff taped up. So the camera looks strange too, if you actually know what it's supposed to look like. So kind of funny, again, a little bit behind the scenes there on that video. But like I said, I didn't really know where this video was going. I guess I've touched on a few things, but this April 1st, no fools, no whatever. Again, this isn't a joke. Just looking back on this old video about an older piece of technology that I still have. I don't know what to do with it at this point. I don't think anyone would buy it. I guess it's just going to sit on a shelf and add it to the collection. I can tell my kids about it one day and say, oh yeah, I used to film with that. It wasn't my first camera, I guess, but it was early on. And I am thankful, I am grateful that I had that experience at the time because it pushed me on the career path that I'm on now. So I guess if it wasn't for the HVX 200, I probably wouldn't have gotten the GH1 and I maybe wouldn't have gone on, to do film school and get into the video industry and all that. I do owe a lot to this camera. So the video itself was not meant to be a joke, although it was tongue-in-cheek, but purely from a timing perspective. To talk now, 20 years later, as if this thing is so great, kind of untrue, but at the time, it certainly was all those things and more. So my enthusiasm is genuine, although maybe 20 years too late for the actual video. But when the HVX came out, I don't even think YouTube was just coming out. I think the HVX 200 came out right before YouTube. So even the first things I would have shot on the HVX 200 couldn't have been uploaded to YouTube. Gosh, was I uploading anything anywhere at that point in time? I don't think so. Maybe, no, like what other websites? Like YouTube Vimeo, was Vimeo around back then? I don't think so. I don't really remember. Vimeo, was kind of one of those early things, like the opposite of YouTube. Oh, YouTube is for cat videos and silly memes. Vimeo is for the professionals. So yes, of course, all the professionals, myself included, uploaded to Vimeo, but probably a mistake in hindsight. I loved YouTube when it first came out, and I've been on it ever since. This channel is fairly old from when I first started it, and have been on YouTube since probably the very beginning. It kind of came out right at that right time where I would have been in high school. So that perfect time to be watching dumb YouTube content and saying like, this is the future. Even though I didn't know it at the time, even though I couldn't say definitively, that oddly enough was enough to push me to film school, because it was the combination of having nicer equipment, having a passion for video production. I wasn't really into photography as much at the time. It was mostly just video, shooting and editing, learning that, enjoying it, live video, short film type style content, having the equipment, and then seeing YouTube as this spark as, wow, this is really cool. You can people from everywhere just uploading whatever they want, and seeing that spike in popularity of viral videos becoming a thing for the first time, watching all that going, okay, I know I like this. I don't know if I'll go to Hollywood necessarily. I don't know if I'll go be a filmmaker, but I'll definitely have something to do within this industry. And I guess I haven't looked back since. It was the YouTube and the HVX 200 were the things that kind of pushed me in that direction of, okay, go to film school, get a degree in this. It's a pretty safe bet as a career path that video is going to become more dominant. And that is a bet I'm glad I made, because that has paid off, and that is certainly true. If you look now anywhere, video is like number one. Hollywood maybe has its ups and downs. TV production shifts in different markets, but video itself has become more popular than ever. But also, the prices have come down in certain ways. It's cheaper to make a video now than it was 20 years ago. That's certainly a fact. But there's also much greater demand. So, you got to take it and you got to leave it. You got to move with the market as it moves and flows. And if I was still shooting on the HVX 200, like, how silly would I be? That's foolish. You got to kind of keep up with the times. But thankfully, those prices of quality lights, quality audio, quality cameras, those prices have all come down and become, much more affordable for anyone to do. So if you want to be a YouTuber, a content creator, you want to make good looking stuff, it is cheaper and easier than ever. And you've even got AI tools now to help you along the way, but it still takes creativity. It takes the idea and then the execution of that idea to actually make it happen, which is arguably the hardest part. Because even back then with the HVX 200, yeah, it was expensive at the time, but once you have it, the cost isn't an issue anymore. It's what are you going to create? What are you going to do with it? And that's what matters the most. And the same is true today as it was 20 years ago. What are you going to do with the stuff you have? You bought the latest and greatest equipment. You have the technology. You have the resources. Once you're past that hurdle, and even if you don't, even if you just have your smartphone, you can still do so much with so little, but it takes the idea and the follow through to actually bring it to fruition, do the execution of it, and see how it does. That is the hardest part. It probably always will be, just the drive to do the thing, to do the work. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Maybe that's encouraging. Maybe it's defeating. I don't know. But equipment, cost, limitations It's always mindset. That's always the thing that holds you back, is just your drive and your willingness, your ability to follow through, to just do it. That's what I tell everyone. Just do it. Lots of people ask me, hey, I'm thinking about starting a YouTube channel. And the first thing out of my mouth, I'm like, do it right now. Go do it. If you're thinking about doing it, just go do it. Because it's just like planting a tree. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. And the same thing is true if you want to be a YouTuber, influencer, you want to be on Instagram, you want to do TikTok, you want to make music videos. I don't know what you want to do. Whatever it is you want to do, if you're thinking it, just go do it. Get started. That is the hardest part. And then you'll know if you have the appetite to keep doing it, or you'll just get it out of your system. You'll do it and you'll go, actually, that's not for me. And then great, you didn't spend any time wasted on thinking up all the things you could do or should do or would do or won't do. Just go do it. It's always my advice. It's the hardest part. Just get started, make something, put it out there, and see if you want to do it again. It's my best advice. It doesn't matter what camera you use. It doesn't matter what software you use to edit. It doesn't matter what microphone you have. Just go do the thing, and all of that will follow after if you want to keep doing it. But that first time and the second time and the 10th time will give you a lot of valuable insight that no other person can tell you how you're going to feel or what it's like or what. Just go do it. That is the test. That is going to give you the most actionable information. And that's why it's my best advice. And it's all I can say, but it's also the thing no one wants to hear. So I don't know what to tell you. People want to know, what's the camera? What's the editing software? Yeah, I can tell you, but that's not helpful. The most helpful thing I can tell you is just go do it.